Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We're going on a bit of a historical treasure hunt today, and the goal? To uncover a profound ancient alternative to the completely exhausting transactional mindset that is burning us all out. Seriously, if you're feeling totally drained by the daily grind, it turns out history actually has a fascinating explanation for exactly why we feel this way. So let's just dive right into this by exposing a really bizarre glitch in our everyday reality. Picture this. You're out there hustling, right? Grinding 40, maybe 60 hours a week, constantly refreshing your banking app, just hoping to finally feel like you're getting ahead. But what if the valuation placed on your time isn't actually a modern corporate invention at all? There is a glitch in the math of our worlds that we've been walking right past for literally 2,000 years. See, in the ancient world, there was a highly specific price tag placed on a human life. If you wanted to go buy a common slave, the law in Exodus chapter 21, verse 32, set the price at exactly 30 shekels of silver. Not 20, not 40, exactly 30. It was the absolute floor. That was the valuation of a human being when treated entirely as a depreciating asset rather than a living, breathing person. Which is just staggering to think about, right?
Now, we like to think we've completely moved past this whole human asset valuation thing. I mean, we've got modern offices, ping pong tables in the break room, stock options. But if you really look at it, our modern hustle culture is often just a high-tech repetition of that exact same ancient trap. We are still operating on a baseline that treats human output as an asset to be purchased at the absolute lowest possible floor.
Okay, Section 1. The price of conviction. From ancient guilds to modern hustle. Let's see how this plays out.
This is like history repeating itself with surgical precision. Back in ancient cities like Smyrna and Thyatira, if you wanted to work, you had to join trade guilds, basically ancient labor unions. But to keep your lucrative contracts, you had to participate in their rituals, which meant blurring your morality. Refuse, you are entirely cut off from the economy. It's eerily similar to today. Modern workers face those exact same economic pressures to climb the corporate ladder, compromise their beliefs, or face the very real threat of being canceled or fired.
Jesus actually looked at those ancient people who flat out refused to compromise their integrity, and he recognized the massive price tag on their conviction. He noted that, sure, they were poor by the world's transactional standards, but they were incredibly rich in conviction. They were willing to take the economic hit simply because they refused to play by the 30 shekel rules.
Which brings us to Section 2, the linguistic trap, naming the anxiety.
You know that overwhelming feeling of being pulled in a million different directions by your bills, your inbox, your endless to-do lists? Well, the ancient Greeks actually had a specific word for that feeling, perispo. It literally translates to being dragged all around with absolutely no still point. It's the physical, visceral sensation of constant anxiety. This completely flips the script on how we view our lives. When you're living under that 30 shekel glitch, you aren't just quote-unquote busy. You are quite literally being dragged around. You're being physically tugged by demands that, honestly, you never actually agreed to in your soul. And all that dragging, it creates the secondary state called merimno. This is what happens when your mind just entirely fractures under the extreme pressure of trying to control all your outcomes. Your mind becomes divided, actively pulled into 3 different possible futures all at once, leaving you totally unable to be present in the one actual life you're living right now. So why do we let this happen to ourselves? The prophet Hosea hits the nail on the head. He says we confuse our source. We start relating to our careers and our bank accounts as Ba'ali. That's a Hebrew word meaning a transactional master or owner. We end up serving this master out of pure fear, terrified of our boss's slightest bad mood or an unread Slack message, treating our jobs like entities that legally possess us. It is a perfect mirror for us today, isn't it? We become Ephesus in a cubicle, crushing all our performance metrics, but completely losing our first love in the process. We're like ancient Sardis. We've got this stellar reputation on LinkedIn for being alive, but we're totally dead inside. We spend our best years building these miniature shrines of corporate success, lounging in comfortable beds of ivory, desperately hoping to find shalom, true, total wholeness through a paycheck. But on the inside, the soul is quietly rotting away.
But here's the ultimate catch-22, and this is absolutely crucial to understand. You simply cannot buy restoration with the exact same currency that created the fracture in the first place. Silver cannot fix a soul that was broken by the relentless pursuit of silver. It just doesn't work.
All right, moving to Section 3, the ransom pivot, Hosea and Gomer.
This is where history takes a visceral, breathtaking turn.
God tells the prophet Hosea to do the unthinkable. Go down to the local slave block and buy back his betraying wife, Gomer. But Hosea, he doesn't even have enough cash on hand to do it. So he scrapes together a payment consisting of 15 shekels of silver, and he supplements it with 1.5 homers of barley. Now, what's fascinating is that in ancient markets, that exact amount of barley was worth exactly another 15 shekels.
Do the math with me here. 15 plus 15, it perfectly equals 30 shekels, the exact ancient floor price of a common human slave. Hosea meets the exact valuation of the open market.
But here is the absolute kicker. The most mind-blowing part of this whole math reveal is the motive. This was not a business transaction to acquire some useful asset. No way. It was a ransom. Hosea emptied his pantry and gave everything he had to buy back the very person who broke his heart. It completely flips that whole 30-shekel system right on its head. And this powerful action, it perfectly defines a profound Hebrew concept called hesed. This is a completely different valuation system. Hesed is a loyal, covenant love that purposefully lowers itself, by choice, to reach someone who brings literally nothing to the table. It entirely bypasses what you can produce, and it values you based solely on who loves you.
Finally, Section 4, From Slave to Pillar. Let's look at this new valuation.
In this new reality, you are not a dead dog. You are definitely not a broken slave grinding out a 30-shekel existence. You have a Goel, a kinsman redeemer who stepped right up onto the slave block of history and paid the absolute full price to restore what you could never, ever restore for yourself.
So you essentially have two operating systems available to you now. The world's valuation treats you as an asset, a slave worth 30 shekels, living in that constant, dragging anxiety of perispo. But the true valuation, that treats you as a ransomed pillar, grounded in a spoken reality, living in the total wholeness of shalom. You get to choose which math you're going to use. Think about the ancient city of Philadelphia for a second. The ground there literally never stopped shaking. People lived in constant terror of their own walls tottering and collapsing, but history tells us that the pillars of the temples in that city remained standing firm. They stood erect in a scene of absolute ruins. When the world around you shakes, that is exactly what you were designed to be. You're not a fragile wall that cracks under market pressure. You're a pillar.
Because ultimately, your core value is not some arbitrary word on a corporate spreadsheet that can just be revised or revoked by HR on a whim. Your value is a dvar. In Hebrew, a dvar is an unbreakable spoken reality from God. It is just as solid and real as anything you can physically touch with your own two hands. It simply cannot be shaken.
So, it's time to make a choice. Stop relating to your life as a slave to the modern world's transactions. You've already been ransomed. If your true value isn't decided by an HR department or some ancient silver exchange, but by an unbreakable spoken reality, what are you going to build with your wholeness tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, everyone. Stay solid, and I'll catch you in the next one.